At dinner, my daughter's wealthy in-laws slid a check across the table and said, "Let's make this easy. How much for you to walk away from your grandson?" I didn't raise my voice. I pressed record on my phone and smiled instead. That night was only the beginning of their downfall. My phone rang at 4:12 that afternoon, just as the last bit of sunlight slid across my kitchen floor. Baton Rouge heat still sat heavy in the air, and the red beans were simmering low, smelling like home. I had my readers hanging off my nose, invoices spread out across the table, and gospel music whispering from the old radio. Folks call it retirement. I call it staying sharp. I looked at the screen. Talia Price Monroe. My heart softened, the way it always does when I see her name. I still picture her in pigtails asking if angels get tired. "Hey, Mama," she said, cheerful but rushed. That tone told me everything. After 67 years on this earth, I don't need full sentences to know when somebody wants something. "Jeremy's parents are flying in this weekend. They'd like to meet you." I smiled. "Well, it's about time." I don't bite. She laughed lightly, but it wasn't the kind of laugh that comes from joy. It was nervous, like she was smoothing the edges of bad news. "They're old school. Mama, real formal. I just need you to keep it simple. Okay?" I paused, stirring the beans. Simple how? Like, don't talk about money or work stuff. I already told them you're getting by on Social Security. It's just easier that way. My hand stopped mid-stir. Easier for who? I let her talk. They're very traditional about class. You know, they might not understand how you live. So just be yourself, but, like, quieter. She didn't say, "I want you there." She said, "Don't embarrass me." I didn't correct her. I've learned silence tells on people better than anger ever could. "So you told them I'm broke," I said. My voice didn't rise. I just said it plain. "Mama, it's not like that," she said quickly. "They're good people. They just come from a certain world. Jeremy thought it'd be best if—" "Best for who? Talia?" I asked, soft but firm. She went quiet, and that quiet filled the room. The only sound was my ceiling fan tapping its rhythm like a clock, counting something down. After we hung up, I sat there a long while. I opened my old leather purse, the one Tom bought me back in '94 when we laid this kitchen tile ourselves. Inside was a picture of Talia at 8, front teeth missing, arms locked around my neck. That child once said, "Mama, when I grow up, I'm gonna take care of you so you never feel small." I looked at her smile in that picture and whispered, "Baby, you don't even see I already took care of you. You just living inside the safety I built." Truth is, I've never been the struggling widow folks imagine. I handle contracts for the city hospital, money steady as sunrise. But I never told Talia. I wanted her to respect work, not worship wealth. So now she wanted me simple. Fine, I'll play simple. I'll wear my tired shoes and carry this old purse. I'll keep my pearls in the drawer and let them call me nobody. Because sometimes the best way to see people's hearts is to let them believe the lie they built for you. I turned off the stove, the house going quiet except for the hum of the fridge. I thought of Tom, his laugh, his steady hands, and how he used to say, "Baby, never hand somebody the knife they gon' use on you." I smiled to myself. Don't worry. Tom, I ain't handing it. I'm watching who picks it up. Before the sun slipped away, I picked up my phone again. My hand didn't shake. I called Talia back and said, "Baby, when we get in front of his people, what exactly am I to you?" The Pine Terrace looked like the kind of place that thought too highly of itself. Soft lights, valet boys in white gloves, fountains pretending to whisper class. I stepped out of the car and adjusted my plain dress, the one I'd pressed myself that morning. My shoes were comfortable, scuffed at the heel, and the only jewelry I wore was my wedding band, the same one Tom slipped on my finger 40 years ago. I carried my old purse, the one with a faded lining and memories no one at this restaurant would ever understand. Talia was waiting near the entrance, smiling too wide. Her posture said nerves, not joy. She looked polished, controlled, more like a saleswoman than my daughter. I smiled anyway. "You look nice, baby." "Thanks, Mama." She leaned in close, whispering quick. "Please, don't bring up Daddy tonight, his parents. They're not great with emotional stories." Her voice was tight, breath shallow. I looked at her carefully. "Your father wasn't a story. He was your foundation." She blinked fast, glanced toward the host stand. "Mama, please, not tonight." I followed her inside, silent. My chest was heavy, but my steps were steady. Older women like me, we don't make scenes. We take notes. The room was golden and cold at the same time. Long table, white linen, silverware placed like soldiers. Every chair already claimed except one, mine, at the far end near the kitchen door. The air smelled of wine and quiet judgment. Dorothea Monroe sat upright, posture perfect, face still. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Walter Monroe leaned back like the world owed him comfort. Jeremy half stood, then sat again when Dorothea didn't move. No one said my name. No one said, "Miss Price." Talia gestured toward me. "This is Lorene." First name only, like I was a housekeeper, not the woman who raised her. I took my seat. Nobody offered a hand. Nobody pulled my chair. My napkin was folded plain while theirs were sculpted like swans. Every detail whispered that I was less. I smoothed the napkin on my lap and said nothing. Dinner began with Dorothea speaking as if giving a speech. When Talia joined this family, we wanted to give her structure. Her tone was polished, sweetened with superiority. We've helped her adjust, guided her into our way of doing things. Invested in her, Walter added proudly. I looked at Talia. She nodded like it was praise. I said gently, "Invested? How so?" Dorothea smiled thin. "Honeymoon, wardrobe, coaching. There's a standard we keep." Her eyes met mine on that word, standard. I let the silence stretch. "I see," I said finally. "Structure's important, long as it don't turn into a cage." Her lips twitched, but she didn't respond. Walter cleared his throat. "Young couples don't need extra weight." The word hit like a dart. He didn't have to say my name. I folded my hands on the table. "I ain't never been weight in my own house." That stopped him. For a second, the whole table froze. The waiter passed by, pretending not to hear. Inside, I felt my pulse steady, not quicken. I thought, they're teaching me exactly who they are. I looked at Talia again, at the way her shoulders hunched slightly toward Dorothea. I realized then, my daughter wasn't standing beside them. She was standing behind them. I smiled, calm and measured. "Food smells good," I said, because sometimes the sharpest blade is politeness. They resumed their chatter, but the balance had shifted. I wasn't sitting there as Talia's mama anymore. I was sitting there as a witness, collecting evidence. As I reached for my glass, I thought of something my husband once told me. "Baby, respect don't live in money. It lives in how folks act when they think you don't have any." The thought stayed with me while Dorothea leaned forward, voice syrupy. "We're just grateful our grandson has such strong guidance now." My eyes lifted. "From who, exactly?" She smiled wider. "From us, of course." And that's when I felt the real insult start to form. Something deeper than seating charts or napkins. For a moment, the table went silent except for the faint hum of the air conditioner. Dorothea Monroe's words still floated above the white linen, sharp and deliberate. Our grandson is doing so well with us. He told me he wants to stay forever. She said it like she was doing me a favor, smiling with that polished grace rich folks use when they're drawing boundaries. Our grandson. Not your grandson. Not even their boy. She claimed my blood like a trophy, looking right through me as if I weren't sitting there. I stared at her for a heartbeat. My face didn't move, but inside I felt that sting that only comes once you've lived long enough to recognize it, when someone's not talking to you but over you. She kept going, talking about how little Jace sleeps better at our house and how he responds to our structure. That word again, structure. I'd heard it too many times in one night. I took a sip of water, tasting nothing. Across the table, Talia sat smiling, her eyes soft with embarrassment. She knew how wrong it sounded, but she said nothing. I knew that silence well. It's the kind a woman learns when she's scared of losing approval. I leaned forward, slow and calm. Now, when you say our grandson Sugar, I said, my voice steady as church bells, who exactly you talking about? Dorothea blinked. The table shifted. Walter stared at his glass. Jeremy looked at Talia first, like always, waiting for her signal. She gave that syrupy laugh. Oh, of course he's your grandson, too. Miss Price. I just mean we've been helping raise him. Stability, consistency, standards. I smiled faintly. Standards. That's a mighty careful word. She lifted her chin. We just want to make sure he grows up balanced. I didn't miss the message. Balanced meant less like you. I turned to my daughter. Baby, I said, still soft. When little Jace is with them? Do you tell him I'm his grandma? Her fork paused midair. Mama, can we not? Yes or no, sweetheart? He knows I'm Grandma Price? Her lips trembled. She didn't look at me. She looked at Dorothea. That tiny glance told the whole story. My daughter was asking permission to tell her own truth. Dorothea stepped in smoothly. Let's not make this emotional. We all just want what's best for him. There it was again. We, always we. Not you, not his mama, just we. I put my elbows on that starched tablecloth and said, calm as prayer. Let me help you with something. Ms. Monroe. That little boy got Price blood in him. That means he come from me and from Thomas Price. May he rest? You don't get to rename that. You don't get to rewrite that. And you sure don't get to act like I'm some extra chair y'all had to pull up. The room went tight. Even the waiter stopped mid-step. Walter cleared his throat. Now, no one here is trying to erase anybody. Yes, sir, you are, I said. You trying to buy rank with gifts. You trying to earn control with that word stability. That ain't love. That's branding. Dorothea's face stiffened. You're misreading. I know exactly what I'm reading. I cut in. And I don't need glasses for this print, Talia whispered. Mama, please. I didn't even look her way. My tone dropped. Quiet, but sharp enough to cut air. Listen close, all of you. You don't talk about my grandson like he's y'all's project. You don't talk about my daughter like she needed fixin'. And you don't seat me by a kitchen door ever again and still call it family. No one moved. The candles flickered like they wanted to leave too. Respect, I said, isn't optional with me. It's the entry fee. Jeremy tried to recover. Lorene, with all due respect. I raised my hand, slow. Baby, you don't have enough respect for me yet to start a sentence like that. Silence swallowed the room. I could feel my pulse calm, not race. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done negotiating. Then I saw Dorothea's smile return, thin and dangerous. That's when I knew she wasn't finished. She turned her gaze toward Talia, eyes cold but polite, and I could feel what was coming before she opened her mouth. The room stayed quiet after my last words. You could hear the silverware hum where it touched the china. Nobody breathed too loud, not even the waiter by the door. Then Dorothea Monroe tilted her head, her tone smooth as cream but twice as cold. "This is exactly what we've been talking about," she said to Jeremy, her eyes sliding right past me. Talia still reacts emotionally. She doesn't always make stable choices. That word stable hit like a whisper meant to stain. She went on, smiling that polite little smile women like her use when they're calling you less than... Jeremy, honey, we've discussed this. We can't have chaos around Jace. Children sense energy. He needs calm. He needs structure. When she said structure, she looked straight at me. That word again, used like a weapon now. Across the table, Talia's shoulders sank. Her fingers twisted her napkin in her lap. I could see the panic in her eyes, that old look of a woman learning to survive by silence. Then Walter joined in, voice steady as a sermon. "We've stepped in where we could," he said. "Financially, emotionally, with the boy. With appearances. Jeremy's career can't afford instability." It wasn't dinner anymore. It was a hearing. My daughter was being tried in public, and I was the only one hearing the verdict forming behind their words. I sat still, but inside, fire moved through my chest. I thought, I know this playbook. Emotional means unfit. Financial help means leverage. We can't have chaos means we want control. They were building a file, right in front of me. Talia kept her eyes on her glass, breathing small. She thought stillness would keep her safe. I leaned back, watching them rewrite her story like I wasn't sitting there holding the truth. "Finally," I said, "Ms. Monroe, I'm going to stop you right there." My voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It carried the kind of weight folks listen to. "You're talking about my daughter like she ain't sitting 2 chairs from you. You call her emotional. I call her a woman who's been running that household while your son's been gone 3 nights a week for work. You call her unstable. I call her the one holding that baby when the rest of y'all asleep." Dorothea blinked hard. Walter looked down. Jeremy went pale. That silence felt righteous. I didn't gloat. I just let the truth sit there, heavy as a stone. I told them, "Let's be real clear. Talia ain't Charity. She ain't broken. She's that boy's mother and my blood. You don't get to call what y'all do structure and what she does chaos. You don't get to downgrade her so you can feel superior." I turned to Walter. "Sir, you will not use my daughter's name and liability in the same sentence again. I'm saying that calm, right now." The word calm hung in the air like thunder before a storm. Talia looked up at me, her eyes glassy but alive again. For the first time all evening, she looked like herself. Then Dorothea's voice dropped lower, colder. "Lorene, this attitude is exactly why Jeremy and I have discussed setting up something more formal for Jace. Something stable, formal." That word froze the table. She wasn't talking about visits. She meant documents, power, control. "If things get too emotional in that home," she said, "we're prepared to step in. We can create stability for him if we have to." Walter added smoothly, "It wouldn't be personal. It would just be what's best for the child." Talia gasped. Her face went white. "Jeremy, you talked to them about that?" Jeremy didn't answer. Didn't even look at her. I looked at each of them, his parents, their money, their arrogance, and said slow, every word sharp enough to cut porcelain. "So y'all been sitting around talking about taking my grandson out my daughter's house?" The room fell into a silence you could drown in. I didn't flinch. I didn't blink. I just stared back, steady, ready. I didn't raise my voice. I just sat there, still as stone, watching them all breathe the air I owned. Then I reached down, opened my worn purse, and pulled out a black metal card. The waiter froze mid-step when it clicked against the table. I didn't wave it. I didn't smile. I said, "Walter, Dorothea, let's stop pretending y'all are carrying this family. I'm the one with the resources in this room." Dorothea blinked. Walter tried a soft chuckle. "Mrs. Price, we're only being realistic. Raising a child—" "Sir," I cut in, calm as gospel. "I've been paying my daughter's mortgage since day one. Her car, paid in full. Jace's daycare, a year in advance. Health insurance, she's under my corporate plan. So tell me again who's keeping who afloat." Talia's head jerked up. She looked like she couldn't decide whether to cry or breathe. I'd never bragged. I just covered her so she could feel proud. I told the room, "Sometimes mothers love quiet, but don't you ever mistake quiet for broke." Dorothea blinked fast, her face turning pale under that makeup. She'd thought she had leverage. I'd just taken her bargaining chip and set it on fire. Then I leaned forward, voice low but sharp. "I'm Senior Operations Director for Crescent Care Logistics, 5-state region. I sign contracts bigger than your annual earnings. I make $65,000 a month before bonus. So no." "Monroe, I don't need your money. I am the money." You could hear a pin drop. Even the waiter backed up slow. Walter's mouth tightened. Dorothea tried to recover, that brittle smile returning. "Well, Lorene, that's very impressive, but stability isn't just about—" "You right," I interrupted. "It's about who's there at 2 a.m. when a baby's crying. That ain't y'all." Jeremy looked like he wanted to disappear. I turned to him. "You sat with your mama and talked about taking that child formal, didn't you, without telling his mother?" He shifted. "Lorene, you don't understand. I understand English. Answer the question." He froze. Didn't deny it. Didn't defend Talia. The silence told the truth. Talia's hands trembled. I could see her heart breaking one small muscle at a time. I said, "You weren't crazy, baby. They really did talk about taking your power away." Her lips parted like she wanted to thank me but didn't know how. That was enough. I turned back to his parents. "Let's be clear. My daughter isn't unfit, and my grandson isn't in danger. There is no neglect, no instability. You start drafting papers. I'll see you in court, in church, and in every hallway that carries your name." Dorothea's eyes widened. "Are you threatening us?" "No, ma'am. I'm informing you, threats are emotional. Information structural." Walter muttered. "This is getting hostile." "No, sir," I said. "Hostile was you planning custody over dinner and calling it love." I leaned back. "I'm not some quiet woman you hide when guests come. I'm Talia's mother and Jace's grandmother. That's not up for negotiation. From now on, any talk about that child's future happens with his mama present. Otherwise, it's invalid." Jeremy stared down, red-faced. I didn't soften it. Grown folks need to feel what they caused. "And you," I said, looking at Dorothea. "You don't talk about my daughter like she's a project you fixed. You talk about her like the woman raising your son." The table went still again. Then Walter leaned forward, tone flat. "Mrs. Price, We don't respond well to ultimatums. I smiled, slow and cold. That's fine. I don't give ultimatums. I give notice. Walter's words were still hanging in the air when I leaned back, folded my napkin, and said, "Good, 'cause this ain't an ultimatum. This is paperwork." I reached for my old purse, the one they'd all looked at like a thrift store prop, and pulled out a blue folder. No dramatics, just quiet precision. Tabs, color codes, and a lawyer's letterhead on top. I slid it in front of Walter, not Dorothea. He liked to play decision maker, so I gave him something to decide on. He hesitated, maybe thinking it was bluff. Then he flipped the first page, and that little smirk died halfway through the trust declaration. He slowed down at the notarized seal. He blinked when he saw my attorney's name, an attorney his own company had dealt with. I said evenly, "Before anyone throws around words like stability, let's get something clear. My grandson already has financial insulation. My daughter's supported. There is no emergency. There is no chaos. There's just a black woman doing her job, quietly, without your permission." Talia gasped softly, "Mama, you set up a trust." Her voice trembled. I didn't look at her yet. I stayed locked on Walter. And a 529 plan, and emergency guardianship papers in process. So if y'all were planning to formalize something tonight, you're late. I've already done it. Dorothea's mouth opened and closed. She looked like a woman choking on her own script. I leaned in and asked, "Tell me, what exactly were you planning to file? Supervised visitation, shared placement, or full removal?" Dorothea's chin lifted. "We were only thinking about Jace's long-term well-being," I said. "Say the words. You were thinking about taking that baby from his mother. Go ahead, say it plain." She couldn't. Her silence was louder than shouting. Talia's tears came then, quiet, shaking, angry. Not the kind you wipe away, the kind that burns clean. She straightened her back and whispered, "You were going to take my child?" Jeremy didn't answer. His eyes darted toward his mother like a boy caught stealing. I turned to him. "Jeremy, listen close. This right here ain't love. It's control in a pearl necklace. They're not helping. They're building a case, using your name." He swallowed hard. His hands twitched on the table. I said, "You think if they get that child, they'll hand him back when they're done? Sweetheart, rich folks don't share trophies. They display them." Dorothea snapped. "Are you calling my grandson a trophy?" "No, ma'am." I said, "You did. The moment you talked about stability like it's branding." The waiter froze mid-step. Everyone heard that. Walter turned crimson. I lowered my voice, steady and cold. "For transparency, since everyone's so fond of formal, I want it noted that this conversation is happening in a public dining room, with witnesses present. There are staff in this room who just heard you threaten custody against a competent mother." Dorothea gasped. Walter stiffened. He knew what that meant. Context, witnesses, leverage. I added, "Also for the record, my daughter is sober, calm, coherent, and scared because her husband blindsided her. That's all anyone here needs to remember," Jeremy muttered. "You're making this too big. Lorene." "No, baby," I said. "Your parents did that when they forgot she's your wife, not their ward." Dorothea hissed. "Are you recording us?" I smiled. "I don't have to." That line hit like thunder in a chapel. I pushed my chair back, slow, deliberate. "This dinner's over. Any future talk about custody goes through counsel. You will not corner my daughter again. You will not buy me off. You will not manage my bloodline like a business." I stood, laid 2 bills for our meals, and looked straight at Jeremy. "You can stand with your wife or stand against her. But if you choose the wrong side, I promise you, you ain't ready for me as an opponent." Talia rose beside me, trembling but upright. I slipped my arm around her shoulders. We walked out slow. Behind us, Dorothea called, "You think you won tonight?" I turned just enough to answer, soft but final. "I'm not here to win, baby. I'm here to protect what's mine." I woke before the sun, the way I always do, out of habit more than need. The house was quiet, but not peaceful. It was that kind of quiet that follows a storm, when everything looks still but you can still smell the thunder in the air. Talia was on my love seat, curled up under an old quilt, her makeup smeared from tears. Jace was asleep in the guest room, holding that little stuffed lion I gave him last Christmas. I poured coffee and watched the steam twist in the air. The night before kept replaying in my head, the way Jeremy had walked out, his mama's hand on his shoulder like he was still her boy. Talia's phone lit up on the table. No message. Read receipts on. Nothing coming back. That silence cut deeper than any insult. Sometimes the cruelest sound, I told the audience, is the one that never comes, a phone that stays quiet. When Talia finally spoke, her voice cracked. "Mama, they're really gonna try, aren't they, to take my baby?" I sat beside her, rubbed her back slow. "They're gonna try to scare you. That's how people like them move. But no, baby, they're not taking Jace. I've already moved pieces they don't even know exist." I went to my hall closet and pulled out the red binder, the one I'd labeled by hand. Inside were copies of the safety nets I'd built, the power of attorney forms, the trust paperwork, every mortgage payment I'd made when Jeremy was between jobs. Her eyes widened as she turned each page. "Mama, you did all this?" she whispered. "Yes," I said, "because I've seen how quiet women lose everything when loud folks lie first." So she asked, "Why didn't you tell me?" I told her the truth. "I didn't want you to feel small in your own home. I wanted you to believe you built it." At 9:40, her phone finally buzzed. Jeremy. She stared at it, shaking. "Mama, I can't talk to him." She handed it over. I hit speaker. His voice came weak. "Last night got out of hand. You embarrassed them." I said, "Your parents tried to buy custody at dinner and I embarrassed them? That's rich." He stammered. I cut in. "You either stand next to your wife or behind your mama. The middle's closed." The silence that followed was long and heavy. Then he hung up. Talia flinched like she'd been slapped. By noon, the damage had gone public. My sister-in-law sent screenshots of Dorothea's little circle posting about a difficult family situation and prayers for Jace's safety. I could feel bile in my throat. "Baby," I told Talia, "rich folks only go public when they're losing in private." Her hands trembled as she read the lies. I made her look at me. "They're scared, that's why they're loud. Fear always leaks first." I opened my laptop and drafted an email. I CC'd my lawyer, Jeremy, and the Monroes. I wrote that last night's conversation was witnessed, that any interference with Jace would be treated as criminal, and that gossip from their church group counted as defamation. "You don't shout," I told the audience. "You write. You timestamp. You CC the truth." By early afternoon, Jeremy showed up at my door. He looked wrecked. "Can we talk?" he said. "You can," I answered, "but not to take that child." He stepped inside, eyes red. Talia sat across from him. No tears left. "You let them call me unstable," she said. "You didn't stop them." He murmured, "You're making me choose." She shook her head. "No, they did. I'm just asking you to say it out loud." He couldn't. That silence told the whole story. She stood, calm as glass. You don't take Jace today. Not next week. Not until you figure out who you are. Bad when he walked out, the door shut, soft but final. Talia didn't chase him. She just exhaled, shoulders lowering like she'd set down a mountain. My phone buzzed. It was my attorney. Call me, they just made a move. I looked at my daughter, finally steady, finally awake, and said to myself, the war just left the table. Now it's coming home. When the front door shut behind Jeremy, the house went still again. I stood there for a long breath, phone buzzing in my hand. My attorney's name lit the screen. I took it into my bedroom, sat on the edge of my bed, and answered. Her voice was brisk, focused. Lorene, she said, Dorothea's already contacted a custody lawyer, through a friend. They're spreading a story that Talia's unstable, but they're not filing anything yet. They just want fear. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Fear's the oldest trick in the book. I told her what happened at dinner, how they offered money, called it stability, and tried to turn motherhood into a business deal. She went silent, then asked, Do you have proof anyone outside the family heard it? Yes, I said. A server, a couple at the next table, and an audio file. I hit record when Walter said the words, formal custody. Her voice sharpened. Send it. I'll draft a cease and desist and a defamation warning before sundown. I smiled to myself. I'd spent my career making paper trails. Now I was doing it for blood, not bonuses. Paper wins. It always has. When I hung up, I walked back to the kitchen where Talia was sitting with a cold cup of coffee. Baby, I said softly, I'm about to do something loud. Her eyes widened. Mama, I stopped her. They've been painting you crazy in whispers. I'm going to give them the truth in daylight. I opened my laptop and typed, last night, during a family dinner in a public restaurant. A wealthy couple offered to pay my daughter to step back from her own son. Witnesses were present. Audio exists. We have counsel. Any further falsehoods will be treated as defamation. My daughter is a capable mother and fully supported. No screaming, no gossip, just facts. I posted it to the same places Dorothea had cried for sympathy, the church forum, the neighborhood thread, and our extended family chat. I signed it. Lorene Price. I told the audience, when you've been quiet your whole life, putting your name on something is an act of war. The fallout came fast. My phone lit up with calls, texts, prayers wrapped in nosiness. Walter sent a message through Jeremy. We were misunderstood. Dorothea texted, long and weepy, about how disappointed she was I'd gone public. I replied, the street's where you tried to buy my grandson. I just turned the porch light on. She didn't answer. By mid-afternoon, I'd sent every file, every screenshot, every receipt to my lawyer. Then I sat across from Talia at the old kitchen table. I slid 2 envelopes toward her, one labeled Jace's Trust and another marked open if anything happens to me. Nobody's ever going to make you beg for safety, I said. Not while I'm alive. Not when I'm gone. Talia's tears came soft. She whispered, Mama, what if Jeremy never comes back? I reached across the table, took her hand. Then he don't. We'll still eat. We'll still laugh. Jace will still wake up Christmas morning in a house with our name on the deed. That evening, I wrote one last message, formal, clean, final. Any further harassment or public insinuations about Talia's fitness will result in immediate legal action. Respectful contact with Jace is welcome. Disrespect ends access. I signed it again. Full name. That repetition wasn't ego. It was ownership. When the house quieted, The light from the blinds fell across the floor like gold ribbons. Jace padded in, hair wild, clutching his lion. "Grandma, are we staying here?" he asked. "Yeah, baby," I said. "You're home." He climbed into my lap. Heartbeat small and steady against my chest. I rocked him slow and told the audience, "That heartbeat's why I didn't flinch. That's why I fought clean." I looked out the window and spoke to every woman my age listening. They called me dramatic. They called me difficult. But protecting your blood ain't drama. It's duty. Then I smiled, tired but whole. They wanted me silent. I'm not silent. I'm documented. That night, as the house finally slept, my phone buzzed again. An unknown number, no name, just a single text. "You think it's over? Check tomorrow's paper." I stared at the glow on the screen. Heartbeat steady but slow. Some wars. I realized, don't end. They change battlegrounds.